So, let me just read you. We'll start out with the title of this article from Reuters, okay? Let's take a look. U.S. Senator expects United States to send more funds for Israel's Iron Dome. Who is that senator? Well, none other than Lindsey Graham. So this this dude over here, right? He's been busy. So he said on Tuesday he expected Washington would quickly authorize as much as $1 billion for Israel to replenish its Iron Dome missile defense system after clashes in May with Hamas. Yes, because of course, as you know, when you have one of the most advanced militaries in the world, an occupation force that is subsidized, as you can clearly see, by the United States, right? With an air force, a navy, tanks, drones, a very capable intelligence service, and they go and they bomb a civilian population, when they go and bomb Gaza, this tiny strip of land, this enclave, which is home to 2 million Palestinians and is the third most densely populated place on the planet, which is under siege, by the way, by Israel and Egypt. That's a clash, right? It's not a massacre. It's not a butchering. No, it's a clash, right? Because clearly an army, bombing a country with no army, that's a clash. It's not a massacre. It's a clash, right? We got to use the colonizer language, right? We have to use the colonizer language. And of course, the mainstream media has to frame what's happening in Palestine, the occupation of Palestine, the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. They have to frame it as a clash. Because if you talk about an occupation, people would ask, well, who's occupying what? Oh, the Israelis are occupying Palestine? Oh, so it's not a country. These are colonial settlers from Europe and elsewhere. They've come here to take people's homes. Oh, the jig's up. So they can't have that. They have to call it clashes, right? 230 plus dead on the Palestinian side, 12 Israelis dead. Yes, it's a clash, right? In 2014, 65% of Palestinians killed were civilians. Just now, what happened in May? Half of them were women and children. That's a clash, right? When you butcher women and children, it's a clash. So, this is what Senator Lindsey Graham told reporters in Jerusalem. Actually, instead of reading the quote to you, I'm just going to play the clip, right? So he went to occupied Palestine. He went to the holy city of Jerusalem, and this is what he said.
Saving thousands of Israeli lives and tens of thousands of Palestinian lives. So I would imagine that the administrations will say yes.
So he's talking about the Iron Dome system, right? For those of you who are not aware, the Israeli occupation, they have several air defense systems, right? So they have the Iron Dome, which is one of them. Arrow is another one. They also have David Sling, I think, is its name. So, each one is for a different type of missiles. Iron Dome is for shorter range missiles, and Arrow for longer range ones. So the ones that Hamas have, they are supplied by Iran. Those have gotten more numerous, and they go longer range now. Okay, so I think they were able to go 250 kilometers just now in May, the latest that they have. Right, so he's saying, as you heard, Lindsey Graham is saying that Iron Dome protects Palestinian civilians, right? Which it's like saying the Atlantic Wall in occupied France protected French civilians, right, from the British or the Americans, right? Yeah, so you see, this is like Nazis in World War II saying, yes, the Atlantic Wall, it's good. With these fortifications, they protect French civilians as well, right? Because they care so much about French civilians that they're occupying. Look at this twisted logic, right? It's unbelievable. So he wants to portray the occupation as a good thing for Palestinians, for their own good. Shut up and be occupied. God, it's unbelievable.
Yes to this request, and it will sail through Congress. There's been a big dust-up over the last engagement between Hamas and the State of Israel in the United States. But I'm here to tell you that there is a wide and deep support for Israel among the Democratic Party.
Oh, we know, Habibi. You heard him, huh? He said there's a wide and deep support for Israel among the Democratic Party. Yes, we know. This is bipartisan murder. This is bipartisan criminality. Yes, bipartisan imperialism. Of course, we know, right? And remember, he's a Republican, so Lindsey Graham. Yes, he has no problem. He has no problem coming in and singing Israel's praises. Confirming to you, he speaks even for the Republicans, for the Democrats, right? So no surprises there. Let me just play the rest of the clip for you very quickly, all right?
And I want to thank President Biden for standing with Israel during this last conflict. I appreciate the administration's willingness to seek from Congress more money for the Iron Dome system. The other message that I received, regardless of party affiliation, was the concern about Iran. After having gone to the South today and seen firsthand some of the damage done from the recent conflict, I was talked to very strongly about the North. That we've been talking about the South in the last week or so, but there's a real fear among the defense establishment in Israel that the potential for Hezbollah to strike Israel is a lot greater than coming from Hamas. The common theme here is Iran. The world is putting Israel in a box. It seems that Iran is able to be the largest state sponsor of terrorism, and nothing deters them.
God, it's like listening to Mike Pompeo. And I don't say that as hyperbole. That's literally a phrase that Pompeo would constantly say. Iran is the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, blah, 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 right? Iraq is weapons of mass destruction, blah, 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 blah. It's the same cow manure, right? So it's incredible, right? How he portrays Israel as the victim. They're putting Israel in a box. Yeah, like that entity in the Middle East that is in possession of chemical weapons and nuclear weapons, right? That has funding from the United States. Poor Israel. Oh no. What will they do with their nukes? What will they ever do, right? Oh no. Hamas and their tiny little rockets, they're more powerful than Israel's nukes. Oh no. The world has put Israel in the box. Oh no. It's not like these are people who've come and colonized Palestine, right? Oh no. God, he's insufferable. Once again, with Israel, this is where you see bipartisan support. I mean, wholeheartedly, right? And if we look further in this article, so Graham is a senior Republican on the Senate Appropriations Committee. Graham met with both Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Benny Gantz during a trip to occupied Palestine. The committee oversees spending, including foreign military aid. I love how he calls it a dust-up as well. That's kind of funny, right? So in any case, Biden has said he would replenish Iron Dome, which helped Israel fend off most of the more than 4,300 rockets fired from Gaza during the conflict, right? So they fired 4,300 rockets, right? They fired more rockets, a faster rate, and longer range. And only 12 Israelis died. 230 Palestinians died. And they of course, they used American jets, American bombs, everything, right? And the Iron Dome itself, as you can see, is also subsidized by the U.S. Where's the aid for Palestinians, right? I don't mean a few bucks that they throw at them, right? But where is it? Oh, it's not there. You know why? Because Palestinians don't have an air force. Palestinians don't have an Iron Dome system. Palestinians don't have conventional armed forces. But apparently, Israel is the victim. This is very interesting. This is hilarious. And then you can see Graham, he's going on Twitter. Listen to what he's saying, right? Take a look.
This is the place to come, but my main message has been more for Israel. The more people try to destroy Israel, the more Hamas tries to destroy Israel, the more Iran tries to destroy Israel, the more aid that the United States will provide to Israel to defend herself from my...
Again, here we go with this manure. Apparently, Israel is the one defending itself, right? Not Palestinians who are living under occupation. And then here we have some more tweets from Lindsey Graham. It says, to those on the American left who believe that the conflict between Hamas and Israel has been spurred on by right-wing politics in Israel. You do not understand the nature of the conflict. He goes on to say that Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon are radical Islamic groups that wish to destroy the Jewish state, not because of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, but because of their religion. Oh yeah, sure. If you don't understand this, you're making the biggest mistake since Neville Chamberlain's Munich Agreement with Hitler. I urge the middle and left of Israeli politics to set the American left straight as to the true nature of this conflict while we still have time. Well, he's right about one thing. If you believe this, you definitely understand nothing about what's happening in Palestine. Okay? So once again, these are not clashes. It's not a conflict. It's an occupation. Palestinians have been under illegal occupation. Well, before by the British and the Ottomans before that. And here we have, of course, again, when I talk about that illegal occupation, you have to look at this through the lens of the entire Middle East, right? Because you had 400 years of Ottoman rule in the Middle East, right? And I speak here more about Syria. And then, of course, the British and the French came and carved it up, Sykes-Picot. And then what did they do, the West? They came and stuck Israel in the middle. So 73 years now, you've had an Israeli occupation of Palestine and around 50 years of the Golan Heights in Syria since 1967, right? They've been occupying Syria as well. People forget this. They think Palestine is the only country under Israeli occupation. It's not. Lebanon was also under Israeli occupation. Guess who kicked them out? Just take a wild guess who in Lebanon kicked out the Israelis. Just take a wild guess, right? After they were occupying South Lebanon for, 15 years? My parents worked at that UN mission. Guess who kicked them out? It wasn't the UN. It was Hezbollah. Hezbollah kicked the Israelis out. So you understand now why they have all this propaganda about Hezbollah. Because Hezbollah wiped the floor with Israel. So here he's trying to make this about religion. This is preposterous. This is absolutely preposterous. Islam, just like, Islam is a monotheistic religion. It's an Abrahamic religion, just like Christianity, just like Judaism. All these religions come from the same place. How do all these religions come from the same place, yet these white people in the West want to come and convince us that we have a problem with each other? We do not have a problem with each other. You go and you talk to a Palestinian Jew, a Palestinian Muslim, or a Palestinian Christian, they all have the same position. What is that position? Get out. Stop occupying our land. Stop oppressing us. That's what a Palestinian would tell you. Go talk to a Syrian Jew, a Syrian Christian, a Syrian Muslim. What are they going to tell you? Israel needs to stop killing the Palestinians and get out of the Golan Heights. Everyone has the same position on this. This is not a religious issue. This is an imperialist issue, a colonial issue. And this piece of shit, he's trying to come here and frame this as a sectarian one. It's not a sectarian one. Not at all. Not even by a long shot. What a piece of shit. This is complete garbage. Complete bullshit. But of course, he's a good doggy, right? So you can see Lindsey Graham. What does he do? He has Netanyahu, give him a good pat on the head, like a good little poodle. Take a look, right? So this is during his visit in the last week.
And no one has done more for Israel than you, Lindsey, Senator Lindsey Graham. He is a stalwart champion of our alliance, and we have no better friend. So I want to thank you for everything you've been doing over the years on our defenses, our security, on Iran. You've been a tremendous friend, tremendous ally.
Thank you.
Welcome.
The eyes and ears of America is Israel. You talk about the Five Eyes, they're important allies, but nobody does more to protect America from radical Islam than our friends in Israel. And I just want you to know, this sign says all you need to know about my trip. To every American, what happens with Iran matters to not only to America, but to the world. The worst possible outcome for the world is to allow the Iranian regime to acquire nuclear capability, because our Arab friends will not tolerate that. They feel far more threatened by Iran than they do Israel. So my hope is to find an alternative to the JCPOA that will allow for nuclear power but not create a nuclear arms race through enrichment. And that's the existential threat to the state of Israel and the world writ large. So what can you expect, my friends in Israel, in the next coming days and weeks from Washington? More.
Thank you.
Oh, he's such a pathetic dog. Look at that plaque.
Yeah.
You see the plaque that he gave him? What is that cheap, ugly little thing? What a monstrosity. I mean, you would think that if he's such a good friend of Israel, they would give him something more respectable than a piece of cardboard. That looks like someone, like a third grader made that in Microsoft Word. What is that? That is so ugly. Okay, look, man, I've had it with, I've had it with these criminals. He's not the only one, by the way, right? So here you can see also Ted Cruz, right? Look at them, such good pals, right? It's in Netanyahu. He's giving his doggies a little pat on the head.
Glad to see two great friends of Israel.
Well, we're here to show our unwavering support for Israel.
Well, we have no better friends, and I mean that. Tested over time.
Well, Mr. Prime Minister, it's good to be back. It's good to be with my good friend, the Prime Minister. And it's important that we're here now to state unequivocally that the United States stands with Israel.
Indeed.
And these are perilous times, but Israel's strength, Israel not only has a right, but a responsibility to defend yourself.
That's correct.
And there are some in the press that draw a moral equivalency between Hamas terrorists and Israel defending innocent citizens. They're not equivalent. And thank you for standing up and keeping people safe. Thank you for Iron Dome, which is a technical marvel. And
Did you say Netanyahu? He was like, well, thank you. It's like, you schmuck. That was so good, man. I got to play it again. That was brilliant.
And thank you for standing up and keeping people safe. Thank you for Iron Dome, which is a technical marvel. And yesterday we went. And
Oh, God. Look at the smirk, man. Look at the smirk. Honestly, he's funny. Right? Netanyahu is really funny. The way he's just treating them like bitches because they are bitches. This is so hilarious, man. I swear. Oh, man. And you know what? I totally agree with Ted Cruz. There is no moral equivalence whatsoever. You know why? Because half the casualties on the Palestinian side are women and children. Yeah? There are 12 casualties on the Israeli side. 12. In 2014, there were over 2,000 Palestinian casualties. 65% civilians. On the Israeli side, there were 67, most of them soldiers. So you want to come here and tell me that one side, the one that is committing a bloodbath, is defending itself, and the one that is resisting, oh no, they're not defending themselves, right? Because of course, in their mind, Palestinians don't have the right to defend themselves because they don't view Palestinians as human beings. That's the truth. This is how white colonial, this is how colonizers talk, how imperialists speak, right? They attribute humanity to themselves, to their fellow oppressors, and the people they're oppressing are not human beings. So of course they can't defend themselves because to them, Palestinians are not human. This is the scum that we are talking about. This is the scum that we are dealing with, right? And I mean, I don't need to tell you. Look at this. I mean, you already know how much military aid the Israelis get, right? This is preposterous. I mean, this is from the Senate themselves. From the Senate themselves, man. Hold on, I pulled up my report over here. Give me a second. So there's a report by the Senate. Here it is. All right. Israel is the largest cumulative recipient of U.S. foreign aid assistance since World War II. Can you believe that? You should, because it's not that surprising, is it? The largest cumulative recipient of U.S. foreign aid assistance since World War II. Okay, now here we have a graph. All right. I'm trying to zoom in so you can see the whole thing because a bit of the frame is cut off. Right. So here we have a graph of how much foreign aid these countries receive from the U.S., okay, in military aid. Look at Israel down here. Look at that. The entire graph is blue. They get direct aid from the U.S. more than any other country, okay? This is going all the way back for decades, right? I mean, it's preposterous. It's absolutely preposterous. And they're going to give them the rest. You know that this one, since Barack Obama's administration, he signed this package deal for 10 years because that's usually how long these deals last, right? This military aid is worth $38 billion over 10 years. So every year since 2016, Israel gets $3.8 billion in military aid from the United States. But of course, it's not enough, right? So during the coronavirus pandemic, right? They give this so-called nonprofit Friends of the Israeli Defense Forces, they get $2.5 million out of the HEROES Act, right? Then come December, when Trump passed his final stimulus, right, that $600 check, included in that was another $500 million for Israel's defense systems, for their missiles specifically, for their missile defense system, right? But now they want to come and convince you, oh, look, man, the poor Israelis, they got no more missile defenses because they wasted them all butchering Palestinians. They wasted all the money. And now, so in addition to the $3.8 billion a year, in addition to the $500 million in December, now they want another $1 billion. They're using their massacre of Palestinians as an excuse to give them more aid. That's what's happening right now. The Israelis are going and using their butchering, their bloodbath of Palestinians in May 2021 as an excuse to get more money in addition to what they already receive. Preposterous. And then these scumbags like Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz, they want to come here and tell us the Palestinians are not human beings. Really? This scumbag, Lindsey Graham, you know what he was doing in 2019? U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham on Monday vowed to push for American recognition of Israel's control over the Golan Heights. So this is back in 2019. This is reported by the Times of Israel. So again, the Golan Heights, these belong to Syria. It's one of the territories that the Israelis captured in 1967 in the Six-Day War. They captured the Golan Heights from Syria, the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt. They captured the West Bank from Jordan. They captured East Jerusalem. And, I mean, they've been illegally occupying all of them ever since. They gave back the Sinai Peninsula. And, you know, I mean, when it comes to the Golan Heights, in Syria, when it comes to East Jerusalem, they annexed them. Like, they passed laws in Israel, right, in this occupation, officially annexing them. Like, they just don't give a crap. And this, I mean, just to give you an idea again how illegal this is, even the United States at the time was like, you can't do that. You had multiple UN resolutions passed by the UN Security Council, unanimous. They were passed unanimously. The P5 plus 10, all of them. They said, you can't do this. You have to withdraw. You can't pass this law annexing East Jerusalem and saying that Jerusalem is your capital. It's null and void. Even the United States agreed with that. Can you imagine? It's unanimous. That's how illegal it is. Like, you have to think how something is so illegal that even the U.S. comes in like, what are you doing? But of course, you know, Trump, he's a great friend of Israel, so he goes a step further. And of course, Blinken, when he's asked about this, which we covered, he doesn't care. The Biden administration, as I told you, their hallmark has been keeping everything that Trump has done and running with it. Like, why would they roll that back? No, keep the embassy in Jerusalem. We'll continue to recognize the Syrian Golan Heights as Israeli and occupied Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Why are we going to roll that back? Trump did it. We're not going to catch flack for it, as if they caught any flack. They're so disgusting, honestly. They're so disgusting, right? You know, Britain helped create this monstrosity, and then, of course, the United States just runs with it, right? That's why this is, again, one of many reasons why you can view the United States as an extension of the British Empire. It is in many ways. Not in all ways, but it is in many ways. And, you know, you have Zionists in both parties and bipartisan support for Israel when it comes to Tories and Labour in the UK, when it comes to Democrats and Republicans in the US. And, of course, you know, all these countries are pussy whipped. Thank you, as Netanyahu says. God, that was hilarious. So, yeah, I just wanted to show you the latest nonsense. And, I mean, dude, you heard it from straight from the horse's mouth. I mean, this is a Republican senator coming and saying on behalf of a Democrat president, oh, don't worry, this is going to sail through Congress, right? He said that. It's going to sail through Congress, this $1 billion package for your defense systems. They're all good doggies. Yeah, they're all good doggies when it comes to supporting Israel. By the way, just one more thing I wanted to point out. It's so funny how you can see all of these countries, these Western countries, like, you know, showing fealty and paying their dues and respects towards Israel after what happened in Gaza. So, I mean, Israel carries out a bloodbath in Gaza, right? Half the casualties are women and children. And what happens? You have Dominic Raab, who's the foreign secretary of the UK. He goes and visits Netanyahu and Gantz, right? And now, same thing with Lindsey Graham, right? He goes and visits Netanyahu and Benny Gantz. And Secretary of State Blinken, he does the same thing. So you have all these secretaries of state or foreign secretaries and all these, you know, these leaders coming and visiting Israel, like, oh, poor you. Oh no. What are we ever gonna do about your bloated military that's just trampling all over Palestinians? Quick, throw some more money at it. Right? It's like the sympathy tour. They all have to come and pay homage. They have to pay homage to the Israelis. I mean, it's so pathetic, really. It's really pathetic. It really shows you who's dominating the other. It's quite hilarious. I think the Israelis find it hilarious too, right? That the UK and the US are such bitches. Hey, it is kind of funny in a way.